Thanks everyone for being here tonight. My name is Ash. For those who don't know me, I am one of the assistant directors of Study Abroad at Brandeis. And I am the person who will continue to email you and probably has been emailing you about all kinds of scholarship and funding opportunities for study abroad. One of my favorite things to do as part of my work is to find the money for y'all, and let's see how we can make it work for you for studying abroad. So this session tonight is supposed to just be kind of a way to talk through some of the big scholarships that are out there and some strategies when it comes to thinking about how to apply to scholarships. A lot of them will ask for like personal statements, essays, things like that. And a lot of times it can be super overwhelming if you're looking at all these different applications, trying to figure out what which one says and what you need to do for each individual one. So this will kind of just break it down for you for a few things, and then we can also talk about any questions you have at the end as well. But I always like to start with just this quick note. A lot of the essay questions or scholarship applications, they're going to be asking you to share aspects of your story or your identity or challenges that you've faced throughout your time in college so far. And some of those might be difficult to articulate or hard for you to revisit. And we know everyone has a story to tell. Part of my job as your advisor is to help you convey that story to a scholarship committee in a way that will be compelling to them and in a way that'll highlight all of your strengths and all of your talents. But we never want you to feel like you're being asked to disclose too much or share things that you aren't comfortable discussing. So it is your decision to what extent you want to go into detail about your past and different things about yourself. And I always just like to put that out there because I don't think we say it enough. Um, so that it's just to start. So the agenda tonight, very simple, how we can talk about writing strong essays for scholarship applications. Um, there are some scholarships that will ask you to do a service project upon your return to Brandeis after you study abroad. So we can start brainstorming kind of how to come up with something like that that's going to be relevant to you and be something that you're excited to do when you come back from abroad. And then we're going to just talk kind of big picture about staying organized, staying on track with scholarship application materials. I know there's so much to do with study abroad between applying to your program, doing the Brandeis application, and then thinking about all of this stuff. So we're going to talk about how to like streamline some things and how you're going to stay organized throughout the process. So a few of the scholarships that we'll be talking about today and names of scholarships that will come up a lot are the Gilman Scholarship and the FEA Scholarship. The Gilman Scholarship is a national scholarship that is distributed by the US Department of State. Both of these scholarships are unfortunately only for US citizens or permanent residents. Um, but the Gilman is designed for students who are receiving a Pell Grant or who are the dependents of an active duty military member. So if either of those apply to you, then you are eligible to apply for the Gilman Scholarship. And the reason why we focus on this one a lot is because they award quite a lot of money for students between $5,000 and $8,000 for a semester. The Gilman application has a series of short essays that they ask you to do, and one of them is called your statement of purpose essay. It's kind of like a personal statement, but different than, say, your college application essay or something like that. Um, FEA, it's short for the Fund for Education Abroad. They also have pretty high paying scholarships. Both of these are pretty competitive, but Brandeis students tend to do well in the process. And FEA has a couple of different essays as well. Um, my biggest tip when it comes to looking at these, oh, FEA actually is also, it's open to any student who has any kind of financial need, and also is for US citizens. So these two are kind of the biggest scholarships that students will apply for. And my best piece of advice is if you already have a sense of where you're going to study abroad and you're starting already on your Brandeis application short answers, that is going to be a good basis for these statement of purpose essays. So for the Gilman one, it asks about how is studying abroad going to help you achieve your academic or professional goals? And if you've looked at the Brandeis application already, you know that that first question that we also ask you to answer is, how's your study abroad going to fit into your academics at Brandeis? what do you like about this program academically? Why is it a good fit for you? So the purpose of the Brandeis short answer questions are to help you reflect and also to help you feel like you have something to start with when it comes to doing these types of essays. Um, you're going to want to talk about why you selected the program that you did and why you're interested in being in the country that you're going to. Again, something that we kind of ask you to start thinking about in that application essays. Um, they ask about how you feel prepared to be a successful scholar abroad. And so thinking through what was it like when you transitioned to college, when you came to Brandeis, what were some of the challenges you faced, the skills you used, the resources you relied on to overcome challenges academically here? And how do you think that you would use those abroad as well? Um, and then the last question here is what examples of knowledge, skills, or experiences will you draw on to meet the challenges of going abroad? And I think that can be anything from any sort of academic accommodations or resources on campus that you use to, the support systems of your family and friends and chosen family. What are some of the things about you that make you a good candidate for study abroad? And how are you going to bring yourself to a new country or a new place? The Gilman essays tend to be a little bit longer, so you have more time to kind of like talk about these things and talk through these things. FEA has recently changed their application. So their personal statement or statement of purpose essays are two very short 250 word essays. So the first one is tell them how receiving a scholarship will impact you, both in the immediate future and in the long term. And I think for that, we can kind of think about academically in terms of your career, things like that. It's okay to be very straight into the point in these. You don't need a huge opening paragraph. You can get right to the point. The second one is kind of more fun and interesting just to get to know you as a person. And the question is, what should we know about you that's not conveyed elsewhere in your application? And they really do mean that. I've had people who have talked about like niche like interests they have and how they're interested in getting involved in like their like gaming communities abroad and things like that. Um, so definitely think about kind of what makes you unique and what might someone not know about you from reading your transcript, from seeing the classes you've taken at Brandeis, that kind of thing. So those are kind of two overviews of the main pieces of some application essays. And we did create tip sheets for each of them. So there's a Gilman essay tip sheet and there's an FEA application or essay tip sheet. I would say a lot of the tips and tricks on here are things that you can apply to any kind of applications that you end up doing in the future, whether you're applying to grad school, scholarships, fellowships, anything like that. So we're just going to talk through a few of these. And one thing is to know the mission. So if you're applying to any of these scholarships, take a look at their website, see what their mission statement is. What do they think is most important? And then how we can help you figure out how to reflect that in your essays and in your application. Knowing your audience is important too. And I think for any of the study abroad scholarships that you're applying for, your audience is usually going to be people like me, people like student financial aid counselors, fellowship advisors, study abroad advisors, sometimes faculty as well. Um, they're people that are interested in seeing students go abroad, that are interested in their academic and career aspirations. They're also people from across the world. So they may not be familiar with Brandeis, acronyms and things like that. So helping to kind of like introduce people to Brandeis as a school and your major and things like that, making sure you're spelling out IGS or HSSP, for example, is really important in these. Number three kind of ties back to my initial slide at the beginning, sharing your journey. So the Gilman Scholarship is very focused on awarding money to students who are previously have or would not have otherwise have opportunities to study abroad if they did not get this funding. They're also very interested in uplifting students with diverse backgrounds. So students who are going to non-traditional countries, students with disabilities, LGBTQ students, first generation students. If any of these sort of categories or identities are part of your story, then we highly recommend mentioning it at least, maybe talking about it a little bit, again, to whatever extent that you are comfortable. But it does allow folks to know this is something that sets you apart. This is something that makes you unique, and it might actually make you more eligible for different scholarships as well that are often identity focused. Giving specifics when you're doing any of these kinds of essays is really important as well. We like to say that if you gave your essay to a friend to read, um, they shouldn't be able to read it and immediately put any other country in or put any other program in and still have it make sense. So everything you write should be tied to exactly you, your program, your academic goals. Um, Explaining exactly why something is the best fit for you. Um, the next one is sort of mapping out your essay and your goals. Again, like study abroad advisors can help with this as well. And whether that is making a Google Doc and just throwing a bunch of information on it before you start turning things into sentences, kind of thinking through what do you want each paragraph to say, it's totally fine to have us help you with any stage of the process, whether it's, the very beginning where you're just sort of trying to brainstorm, or whether it's polishing up a final essay at the end. Um, Number 6 will be dependent on which scholarships you're applying to. So there are certain things from being part of the review committee and being someone who has evaluated scholarships in the past. All of us as advisors have taken notes on kind of like what they're most looking for and what makes an application stand out. So we try to give you some insider tips there. And then there's also on these scholarship websites, there's a lot of resources there too. So they'll often have like former students who have gotten the Gilman or FEA scholarships sharing about what are their tips and tricks for the essays. There's like little videos with other like tips and tricks and resources as well. So definitely take a look at the resources on the website because those will kind of give you insight into what they're looking for as well. Now I just want to talk about some questions that come up a lot when we're thinking about scholarship applications. And the first one is, what if you don't know what you want to do in the future? All of these applications are asking you, how is this going to impact your career? How is this going to set you on a certain path? It is okay to be like, I do not know what my path is. Um, they just want to know, what are you interested in, what you're passionate about, why is study abroad something that you want to be part of your overall academic journey? You don't have to say, I know that I'm going to do this, get this legal studies internship during this study abroad program, go to law school, become this kind of lawyer, practice this kind of law. It doesn't need to be spelled out in that much detail. If you more just kind of have a sense of what types of classes are interesting to you, what kinds of questions are you interested in thinking about? What are some things that appeal to you in terms of like the kind of work you'd want to do in the future? Do you want to work with people of a lot of diverse backgrounds? Do you want to be able to do things that, you know, is sort of like global focused? Those are things that you could say study abroad will definitely help you in, and that connects to your career and professional goals without necessarily tying you down or like having to spell out one exact path you see yourself going down. Another question we get a lot is from folks who are applying to 2 programs. It's totally fine to apply to 2 programs. Many people do it. For the simplicity of it and because of the tight word counts, we think it makes the most sense for folks to focus their scholarship essays just on your top choice program. There are options of, say you get accepted to a certain scholarship, that is focused on a certain place, or you applied to the Gilman Scholarship when you were going to Copenhagen, and now you've decided you're going to go to Argentina. There are ways to switch programs in their system to request a change and things like that. So don't worry if your program changes later. For now, just focus on whatever your top choice is. Okay, so There is a few more elements to the Gilman Scholarship that I just want to highlight. Um, and this one is called the Building Mutual Understanding Essay. Um, because, as I mentioned before, Gilman is run through the US Department of State. It's very much focused on how are US citizens going into the world to be citizen diplomats. How are you representing the United States abroad, and how are you going to learn from people in other cultures and bring that back to the United States afterwards? So, this is one that can trip people up a lot because a lot of times we haven't had to think about what it means to be an American in a, in essays necessarily up until this point. Um, and so I just want to give some like tips and tricks and kind of think through how we can brainstorm around this. So this is the question here. As a citizen, US citizen, how will you represent and share what it means to be an American during your program? How will you seek opportunities to become more culturally engaged and have meaningful interactions with people and cultures different from your own during your program? Um, and just so you know, sometimes the scholarships will list the length of their essays in characters. Sometimes they will list it in words. So Gilman, for some reason, likes to confuse everyone. The maximum is 3,000 characters. That is not 3,000 words. It is much, much shorter. So don't freak out if you see that as well. Um, so going back to the question, what does it mean to be a global citizen or a citizen diplomat? Usually when I'm talking to students, I'm like, can we brainstorm some phrases that come to mind when you think of that? Like, what does it mean to you to be an American right now? And what does it mean to be an American in the place that you're going? So thinking about global citizenship, what it means to have a global mindset, to be someone that is representing a country abroad. That's things we can start thinking about. And then the second part of the question asks specifically in your program, how are you going to interact with local folks? How are you going to go beyond kind of being a tourist? And so thinking about the structure of your program, the type of program you're going on, those are all things that can help us to A, get specific with the details, and B, make sure that we are describing um, something that is meaningful and is going beyond just kind of being a tourist there. So, thinking through if you have the opportunity to have local buddies on your program, that can be a way that you can meet people of your own age and start engaging with the culture more kind of like organically and more authentically? Are you going to be doing a lot of visits to different places and having guest speakers from different regions? What is that going to look like? Do you live with host families on your program? Do you have the opportunity to visit a host family for a weekend, even if you're not living with them full time? Are you in a program where you're at a local university taking classes with local students? Can you join clubs and organizations at your university so that you're meeting people who live there and are from there? So those are all ways to kind of think through, like, on your program, what is the kind of relationships you are going to have with the people of the place that you're going? And based on your interests and things that you want to do, um, how can you kind of engage with local folks as well? And this might be something that you don't immediately know, and you might have to do some research on, or you might have to reach out to your program and say, hey, I'm thinking about, like, I play soccer and it'd be really cool to join like a local team. Are there opportunities to do that on the program? It is totally fine to be asking those questions and to be using some of those answers in your study abroad scholarship applications too. So service projects are a thing that also comes up. Um, the Gilman essay or the Gilman scholarship, the third short answer, the third essay question is about a service project. For folks studying abroad in Asia who have any kind of financial aid, Freeman Asia is another major scholarship that usually awards 5,000 or more dollars for study abroad. I will definitely be sending out emails to folks based on what programs you're applying to and what you're eligible for and things like that. So if you haven't heard of some of these, that's okay. More information coming soon. Um, but one thing to know is that when they ask you to propose a service project. What they want you to do is have some way that you're going to integrate what you've learned abroad on campus and have some way that you're sharing with the Brandeis community or your local community the kind of things that you've learned, the way that you've grown during your study abroad. So, how do you plan on bringing your experience back? And how do you do this in a way that then encourages future students to study abroad, to take advantage of scholarship opportunities, things like that? Um, Service projects, they're less of kind of like an academic essay and more of a who, what, where, when, why. Just spelling out what you're interested in doing, how are you going to get it accomplished, who's your main audience, um, where are you going to host this, when are you going to do it. They want to see that you've put some thought into a project that is specific and based on something that you're passionate about, that it's something that can definitely happen when you return from abroad, either in that first semester and the year you return. And they want to know that it's something that is like fulfilling a need usually on campus. So is there a group of students that you feel like maybe the study abroad office isn't reaching out to you as much, or you've noticed as you've gone through this application process that it would have been really cool if you had had a guide to, XYZ information about study abroad, or, a guide to your local community um, as you were going through the process. Is that something that you can create for future students, or is there an event that you want to hold when you come back? Um, a lot of times what we've seen is people will propose either events when they return. So collaborations with clubs are always awesome. Collaborations with academic departments. Um, some folks will come back and they are artists or like creative writers and things like that. And they'll make like study abroad zines focused on different themes or different things like that. I think are all great ideas and all like very specific, targeted at a certain audience, and definitely something that is attainable. So some of the things that are a little more general that we've seen that doesn't usually go as well in terms of the application process is when folks just say that they want to be a study abroad ambassador. It's usually not specific enough for someone on the Gilman or the Freeman Asia panel to really understand what does that involve? How do you know you're definitely going to get it? What would you do in that role? That kind of thing. So they want to see more. Do you have one idea that you could carry through? Um, Another one that we see that sometimes can be difficult is proposing that you come back and do kind of a mini study abroad fair. I think a lot of folks who are reviewing applications, having put on study abroad fairs, know that it takes a lot to really pull that together and that it can be kind of a lot to ask of yourself when you return from study abroad. So I would steer away from like those types of things and think more about like what are you already involved in on campus? Where do you already have like a group of people that you feel like you could share your ideas with? Do you feel like there are things that were missing throughout your study abroad process, or presentations we should have given, or things like that that would have been helpful, that if you come back from abroad, we will be more than happy in supporting you to fulfill this. So this we kind of talked about how are you going to get it done logistically? What are your skills and interests? Do you like putting on events? Do you like doing like putting together resources behind the scenes? That kind of stuff. What are you passionate about? Um, and we are more than happy to brainstorm with you on all of these. So if you are like, I have no idea, come see us and we'll talk about it. Okay. And you might be feeling like this was a really fast and really wild run through of all the possible things that you need to do. Um, it's totally fine to be overwhelmed. The more scholarships you're eligible for, the more applications that is, the more overwhelming it feels. We totally get it. Um, Start with just one. So if you already have your study abroad application open, start with those short answer questions. Take those short answer questions that you do, put them in a Google Doc, save it for the week after the deadline. And then we can look at that and start adjusting it for other applications. Once you've done one, you've got a solid basis for the rest. So it really just takes that first one. Um, of course, advisors are always around to help, but another great resource are the study abroad ambassadors. So a lot of them have also been through this process. They've all been through this process, but a lot of them have also applied to Gilman, FEA, all of these other types of scholarships. So they know what it's like. Their office hours are going to be starting up again once the semester starts. So check our website for when those office hours are, and you can always stop by our new home in Jizang, 136. Come see us, have some tea, and just chat with an ambassador about how things are going so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And this is where we kind of talk big picture. So what process works for you? And this is the same as if you are, planning for the semester or planning for academics. How do you work best? Are you someone who loves to make lists? Are you a bullet journal person? Do you have to put up visuals of what you want to do? Do you put like 30 sticky notes on your wall and you pull things down as you get things done? Are you someone who starts scheduling time in your Google Calendar to like get work done? Treat your scholarship applications or your study abroad process overall like it's an additional class. So set yourself some deadlines to finish essay drafts, to send them to us for review, schedule time to work on applications, set reminders if there are other materials that you need for the applications. So many of these do not need a recommendation letter from faculty, but some of them you will need something from Student Financial Services confirming your financial aid status. So giving yourself time and giving them time to be able to do those. And then I would say do the easy parts first. You can create an account on the Gilman website and not have to do anything else. You can create an account on the FEA website. Just getting started can be the hardest part. So think through all of this kind of stuff too. And then here are some dates and deadlines to remember. So basically, for most applications, there will be two deadlines. There'll be one for anyone applying to summer and fall and academic year study abroad programs, and there'll be a later one next fall for spring 2026 study abroad students. So if you are applying for spring right now, you probably will not have to do too much on scholarship applications yet. If you are applying for summer or fall, now's the time to kind of like pull it together along with your study abroad application itself. So one thing to know is that the Fund for Education Abroad scholarships are due a little bit before the Brandeis deadline. So they're due February 5th, and that is for summer and fall students. That's the one that's the two short 250 word essays. So not too intense. There is one form that Student Financial Services needs to fill out for you to confirm your aid. So just know that that is something that you'll need from them. But that one I can say you can get started on at any point. It's a good one to apply to for anyone who has any kind of financial aid. The Gilman one comes up a bit later, so that's March 6th. So we've got some time if you want to submit your study abroad application first and then start thinking about the Gilman. That is great. That is for anyone applying at any point next year. So it is the last opportunity for anyone going abroad in summer of 2025 or fall of 2025 to apply for Gilman. If you are a spring 2026 student, you can apply now. And if you get it, you do not have to apply again in the fall. And if you don't get it, you can apply again in the fall. So if you want to give yourself an option, even if it's a little bit of a messier application, throw it out there, see what happens. We can always adjust for the fall too. So March 6th is when to be looking out for those. Freeman Asia, for folks applying to programs in Asia, has one deadline for all of next year. So that happens in early April. Again, I'll be keeping you posted based on what programs are eligible for those, but that's another one to keep an eye out on. And this is not the only scholarships available, right? So when you submit your study abroad application to Brandeis, you check off a little box if you do want to be considered for SACR scholarships. Those are either for need-based aid or determined by the program and location that you're going on. There's different categories of those. The way that those work is that you don't have to do anything else as part of the application. We will use your study abroad essays as your application for those. Some faculty will review those. Um, so those are scholarship applications that you don't need to do anything else for. That is just part of the application itself. And then another one to keep an eye out for are through your programs themselves. So the program providers that we work with, IES, DIS, Arcadia, IFSA, all of them have their own sets of scholarships as well that you can apply to. Those applications will be due at different times depending on when you're studying abroad. So for folks studying abroad in the summer and the fall, again, it's probably going to come up more in February, March. For folks studying abroad next spring, it'll probably come up more in September, October. I will also send lots of email reminders about those, but if you want to get a sense of what's out there, definitely worth taking a look at those too. All right. And if you have questions or you need any help as you're working through things, you can always talk to your study abroad advisor. Feel free to book an appointment with us whenever. And again, as I said before, the study abroad ambassadors are also here to help. Happy to look at essay drafts or to just talk to you overall about general strategy in terms of applying to scholarships. They will be back in the office starting when classes start. So feel free to reach out to us then.